Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Esteem a New Woman. The devilish diva starts on the road to becoming a new creature in Christ in this all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem a New Woman at Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Runway of Doom. The goddess next door struts her stuff on the catwalk to take on a runway of rogues in this action-packed all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis Runway of Doom at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Out of the 777 new freshman students at Stuyvesant High School, only 3 will be black.
When we're looking at our school system, we know that there is so much more work to be done, especially to address the racial inequities that we've seen, not just, frankly, when we're talking about the disparities in admissions of one test, but across the system as a whole.
Mayor Zohar Mamdani says that more needs to be done when it comes to addressing racial disparities in education. New statistics from the Department of Education once again show racial disparities in admissions at the city's specialized high schools. At Stuyvesant High School, among the most famous of the schools, only 3 black students were admitted. That number is down from 8 last year and 10 the year before. Mamdani himself is a graduate of the Bronx High School of Science and said the data is not reflective of the educational potential of students.
We know that a single test does not reflect the aptitude of students across the city. We know that Black and Latino students are excelling across the 5 boroughs.
Overall, only 3% of offers to the city's 8 specialized schools, which includes Stuyvesant High School, Brooklyn Tech, and Bronx Science, went to black students, while an estimated 6% went to Latino students. The majority of admissions, roughly 57%, went to Asian students. The admission process is based solely on a student's test results on the Specialized High School Admission Test, or SHSAT.
That admission system is broken. It shouldn't be based on a multiple choice test that people can study for years in order to get in. It selects for test prep. It doesn't select for brightness.
David Bloomfield, an education professor at Brooklyn College and the CUNY Graduate Center, is a staunch critic of the high-stakes test, who says it should be eliminated. He said a host of other criteria should be used to determine acceptance, like grades. Bloomfield noted that Mamdani currently has the power to make the change at some of the schools.
Mayor Mamdani could eliminate the test criterion for those other schools and try to experiment. See what happens. The story here is a particular odd artifact from the 1970s that continues to determine the high school destiny, if not the life destiny, of thousands of kids.
Past mayors have tried and failed to eliminate the exam. Ex-Mayor Bill de Blasio received fierce backlash to the effort from Asian American communities who felt targeted by efforts to diversify the schools. Many parents and past graduates have also defended the current system. Mamdani believes that efforts in early education could help with disparities.
We're going to be continuing to monitor this, and I think we're asking ourselves the questions of how can we transform the educational results in the years leading up to that test as well.
Kelly Mena, New York One.
Now, according to reports, Stuyvesant High School, New York's top specialized high school, will have a freshman class of 777 students, and out of that 777 students, only 3 of them will be black. And with such a small number of black students, some are claiming that the Specialized High School Admissions Test, or SHSAT, that students have to take in order to be determined to whether they are admitted or not, is a racist exam. Nope, can't blame this one on white supremacy. Now, these people are claiming that it's the exam that's the reason why there are so few black students admitted into Stuyvesant High School. However, the whole issue of the shortage of black students being able to pass the SHSAT, it has been an issue for the last 7 years. Now, 7 years ago, there were only 7 students who were black who were admitted into Stuyvesant High School after taking the SHSAT, and this decline in numbers basically shows the sad state of affairs of the modern black family. Now, back when I was a kid, basically getting into Stuyvesant High School was very hard, and you really had to know your stuff even to just even consider even taking that exam back in the late 1980s. And sadly, when it comes down to many black people, we basically put social currency more as a priority, more important than academics, and this has been the culture in the black community for the last, I'd say, 30, 40 years. And that's why it's no surprise to me that there were only 3 students who were able to pass the SHSAT and be able to get into Stuyvesant High School, because when it comes down to the modern black community, we really don't have that focus on academics or even academic excellence, because according to many of the people in our community, they've been raised with a dysfunctional idea that going out here and being like myself and speaking well, or going out here and reading, are things that they consider to be what they call white. And as they consider these things to be white, they basically don't really care that much about academics or academic excellence. And that's why there's no surprise to me that Stuyvesant High School only admitted only 3 black people as related to passing their exam, because when it comes down to the black community, we no longer focus on academics or academic excellence the way many of the previous generations, like the Greatest Generation and Silent Generation foundational black Americans did, because in those days, basically, when it came to the Greatest Generation and the Silent Generation, they basically saw their ancestors seeing a value in education, and they saw value in education because that's what people used to get themselves out of slavery, and in some cases, and others used to go out here and start things like black-owned businesses. They saw black people using their education as a tool to advance themselves. Unfortunately, as we got into the civil rights movement and black people got integrated into society, there was less of a value on education and more of a value on social currency and social acceptance. And as there was this value of social currency and social acceptance, basically we saw more black people having less regard for education, especially when they saw many of their favorite entertainers, like in my era, LL Cool J never finished high school. And when many people from my cousin's generation, they saw many of these rappers like Curtis 50 Cent Jackson talking about how they didn't have an education. And as they saw these entertainers going out here and making millions of dollars without having any sort of education, education started to lose its value in the black community, because they started to see many of these entertainers going out here and having economic success without having to get an education, the way many people like Bill Cosby went out here and had to go out here and get degrees in order to go out here and move themselves ahead. Or guys like the late Melvin Van Peebles, again, had to study film. Again, people did not see a value in school because they saw many of their favorite entertainers, again, not only getting success by not going to school, but also saw them going out here and talking bad about school. So in the black community, what has happened is that people don't value education. But what's really insane to me is that these same people who did not value education, what they are now doing is looking to say, oh, this exam is racist, when in actuality, if you want to go out here and do well academically and even perform excellent as related to academics, you have to start out at an early age. And when it comes down to most black families, there's no real focus on academic excellence anymore. And that's where the problem lies as related to this only 3 students being admitted into Stuyvesant High School. The reason why there's only 3 students being admitted into Stuyvesant High School is because we have a dysfunctional culture in the black community that teaches kids that, oh, you don't need to value education. And that's further compounded by many of these white female teachers who, as related to things, basically enable these kids as they're living in these dysfunctional households with these parents who basically don't care about education. Again, the parents come in. They're not really focused on getting their kids to read books. They're not focused on getting their kids to go out here and study. No, they're focused mostly on getting their kids to, again, play PlayStation games and go out here and get these Air Jordan sneakers or be able to go out here and talk to girls. They're focused on that stuff as related to their kids, or the many of these single moms, they're focused on trying to get some man. So they're not focused on the child's academic excellence. And again, that's the start of the dysfunction with the black child, and then that's compounded by the white female teacher who basically enables the child because they believe it's just good that they write their name. And according to one of my family members who did work in education with early childhood, she told me that a lot of times that these white female teachers will just go out here and just look to pass the kids on, not whether or not they learn anything. And all of this basically reaches a climax when these kids hit junior high school. And when they hit junior high school, and I know from personal experience, when you hit junior high school, this all becomes a complete academic disaster because the toxic environment of New York City public middle schools, again, a complete hellhole. And then the lack of teaching that you get in those rooms, again, this leads the kids, they're not even ready for regular high school, let alone one of these specialized high schools. And what happens is that these kids go in on a pipeline to prison because they just basically fall apart in the 7th and 8th grade. And by the time they get into high school and have to deal with all that trauma that they've dealt from the 7th and 8th grade because there's no structure or order in those schools, what happens is that they come out of that chaos and then they go into the high schools and they basically barely are able to function. And this leads to kids basically falling completely apart academically. But people are sitting there scratching their heads wondering, oh, why aren't there any black kids going to these specialized high schools? Well, these kids are not able to go to these specialized high schools because when it comes to black kids, we don't prepare them on a road where they can start focusing on academic excellence. No, we don't focus on them focusing on academic excellence from minute one like many other communities do. I mean, when I look at other communities like the Asian community, they basically are focused on academic excellence. It's a part of their culture to focus on academic excellence, whether it be China, Korea, and Japan. Their kids are basically in school at an early age, and they're drilled and told to study basically every day throughout the early childhood. And as they're taught to study every day, they're taught to be able to compete academically. And that's the culture of many of the Asian community. And even in the white community, people who want to compete in the top schools, they understand they got to focus on their academics early on to get to academic excellence. But when it comes down to the black community, we don't really go out here and see education as having that priority the way our ancestors did. Our ancestors saw a value in education, but the modern black people, I would say from Gen X onward, we see a value in social currency. And then what we do is that now that we're seeing that we're being socially shamed, this is where you see all this outrage come out about only 3 students getting into Stuyvesant High School, when the whole thing is that if you want academic excellence, you've got to pursue academic excellence from minute one. You've got to pursue academic excellence if you want to go out here and get into one of these top schools. You've got to do that from minute one. Your kids have to be reading on the regular. And I'm not talking about just reading anything. They got to be out here again, reading material that's above their grade level, and they've got to be out here studying different things. And again, it has to come from the heart. This is something you gotta want for yourself. That's the other thing many black people don't. They don't want it for themselves. No, what they want is social currency. What they want is cool points. What they want to be is cool, but cool doesn't get you far outside in an education environment. Cool doesn't get you very far. And that's the thing that flies over the heads of most black people who want to cry racism. I mean, when it comes to these tests basically have been the same ever since I was a kid, almost about 40 years ago. I mean, these tests have been the same, and they've always been considered to be the toughest exam, and you had to be on your stuff. You had to be on top of your stuff, because Stuyvesant High School, again, is a very competitive school, and if you want to get into this school, you have to, again, show how your skills early on. You have to be out here preparing for Stuyvesant, I say, from the day you enter kindergarten. But sadly, when it comes down to a lot of us black folks, we more concerned with getting ready for the party and the club than preparing our kids for academic excellence, because academic excellence is acting white. But then what's ironic is that while we call academic excellence acting white, we want to talk about how racist it is for these schools not to let our kids in. And the whole thing is that if your kids basically went out here and saw the black value in education the way our ancestors did, because our ancestors saw a value in education, our ancestors saw value in going to school, our ancestors understood that it was more important for us to learn in school than to go out here and be out here in these streets, going out here doing stuff like playing video games and chasing chicks. We understood that there was a sacrifice that had to be made for us to get our education so that we could go out here and be able to build a better life for ourselves. That's what our ancestors understood. But sadly, those lessons were not passed on after the civil rights movement, and that's why many black people aren't progressing in academic environments, and that's why we have only 3 students going to Stuyvesant next year. Now, if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct Imprint, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Google Play, Draft Digital, and other online booksellers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me talk about different topics, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, An Offer He Can't Refuse. The man who rules the world gets a job offer he can't refuse in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes, An Offer He Can't Refuse at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.